Your reaction to the use of designs determine your way of life. Your use of everyday objects is as a result of the designs attached to each one of them. Everything you use has a plan, and its simplicity or complexity determines how well you use them. When something has a sophisticated design, you'd most likely not use it, but when the design is simple, you'd love to use it. The way things are designed shows the level of attention paid by designers. This also goes to show that designers should be appreciated more for the level of work they do. Many designs are overlooked by users, and this is because the designer has successfully made the product easy to use. Designs are essential in our daily activities and careers. For instance, athletes can attest to the importance of designs in their lives. The best athletes always have their gears designed by some of the best organizations in the world. This is because the right design enhances performance and makes it easy to improve on one's talent. Designs are also a key part of an organization's brand. iPhones are known for their sleek designs, and this contributes majorly to their exponential revenue. Other organizations like Puma, Adidas, Samsung etc. also thrive on their designs, and that's why they are globally recognized. In this tidbit, you'll learn the importance of designs, as well as the methods you can use to create a good design for your brand. Humans spend a considerable amount of time trying to figure out unnecessarily complicated designs. Because the human mind is conditioned to reason and seek solutions, it is difficult to disregard the complexity of a situation. Instead, you'll want to figure out how to fix them. The ability to communicate effectively is important for successful designs since it is necessary to know whether things go wrong or correctly. A designer should be able to take into account a number of factors that contribute to the simplicity of designs, including the following. Affordance. Affordance is the relationship that exists between the components of an item and the functions of the agents that define how the thing may be used to accomplish its goal. A chair, for example, provides support, which is why it can be used for sitting, as opposed to a pin, which cannot be used for sitting. Visibility. A user's ability to manage changes rapidly is facilitated by the visibility of hints and information. When a designer creates anything that is different from the traditional products that people are used to, there must be visible information that allows people to understand how to operate the innovation quickly and simply. Mappings. Mappings are the link that connects a command to the controls that have been allocated to it. When the mappings associated with controls are described in a manner that users can understand, it makes design much easier to do. A brilliant solution to the wrong problem can be worse than no solution at all. Solve the correct problem. Donald A. Norman. Feedback. Feedback is essential in the development of any design. A large number of designers fail to recognize the importance of user input, resulting in a lack of understanding of what users think about a product. Conceptual models. These are simplified examples that provide a general idea of what an item is capable of. It provides a short overview of what is anticipated of a certain activity. Mental models. The term refers to when a design has been developed in a shape or form that makes it difficult to make errors since there is little possibility for it to happen in the first place. All of these models make it easy for designers to discern between good and bad designs. It also gives them additional knowledge of how best to make a design appealing to people. The human mind reacts to designs and errors in different ways. The way people respond to a design flaw is mostly the result of a misinterpretation of the action and a confluence of circumstances. It has been observed that oftentimes, individuals attribute design flaws to their own lack of skill, even when the flaw has absolutely nothing to do with their ability. Also note that invariably when we design something that can be used by those with disabilities, we often make it better for everyone. Donald Norman. Upon being requested to assess a major computer brand, Donald Norman found that he was having problems with the computer keyboard because the Enter button and the Return button were positioned too near to each other, leading him to accidentally press the incorrect button on the computer keyboard. Upon reporting his concerns to the designer said that other individuals were using the keyboard without raising concerns. When he inquired of the other employees, they verified that they were experiencing the same issue but chose not to report since they believed it was their responsibility to fix it. Designers should minimize the amount of potential errors and make errors reversible as much as possible. Humans have a lot of preconceived notions about the world. They are particularly susceptible to making design errors when they have a misunderstanding of certain concepts. Because of a series of coincidences, we often assign the incorrect reason to a problem. When anything goes wrong, we look for a reason to attribute it to without considering whether the cause is correct or incorrect. This causes us to place the blame on the incorrect item and makes it difficult to discover a solution. Feedback and a simple conceptual model are essential to understand how to overcome mistakes. People assign flaws to themselves when they believe they lack the mental, physical, or psychological capacity to complete a task. This is known as self-blame. They shun initiatives merely because they've made a few mistakes in the past and thus feel the need to stay away from the project. When you misjudge a scenario based on input, it's difficult to determine where the issue originated. There are 7 stages of actions that explain the way people do things. Forming the goal, the point where you create your plan. Forming the intention, how you plan to execute your goal. Specifying an action, the act that starts your plan. Executing the action, execute the first step in building your design. Perceiving the state of the world, make findings about your target market. Interpreting the state of the world, your feedback about your target audience will determine your best move. Evaluating the outcome, why you try out your design in the real world. When individuals utilize things, they are confronted with 2 gulfs, the gulf of execution and the gulf of evaluation. When users are attempting to find out how an item works, they are in the gulf of execution. They are interested in knowing if the activities delivered by the system correspond to those desired by the individual. The gulf of evaluation is the area where you attempt to determine what occurred. You want to know how much work it will take to interpret the physical condition of a device and how well the interpretations will be met. For example, mobile app developers roll out beta versions of apps to receive feedback. Information is the basis on which designs thrive. Donald Norman once borrowed a friend's vehicle for a few days. When he was ready to depart, he discovered a message telling him that the only way to pull the key out of the ignition was to put the car in reverse. He was furious because he would not have known if it hadn't been for the letter, and this is an issue that affects many people. Not all knowledge has to be retained in the brain. Certain information should be written down so that individuals may look at it and recall them more readily if they so want. Please mind the glass is a notice that may be seen at most supermarket. In this scenario, anybody who sees the sign would immediately recognize or recall that there is glass on the ground every time. Accurate conduct does not necessarily have to be learned in the brain. It may be partially mastered and partially written down as a result of practice. Precise behavior can emerge from imprecise knowledge for 4 reasons. Information is in the world. Great precision is not required. Natural constraints are present. Cultural constraints are present. The combination of internal knowledge, external information, and restrictions results in the development of behavioral patterns. Around the globe, information is available to you at all times, and this influences your behavior. This implies that individuals have the ability to eventually choose the kind of conduct they want to display. Because they understand what is expected of them, they can adjust their surroundings to support their actions. For life to run well, it is necessary to reinforce concepts and provide repeated information. If you have an appointment scheduled for a certain time period, your brain is not secure enough to prevent you from forgetting. Investigating alternative choices, such as setting reminders or putting the appointment in a place where you can readily reach it, lowers the likelihood of forgetting about the meeting. Knowledge gained in the real world aids in the recovery of structures that we would otherwise forget. Nevertheless, this does not imply that knowledge gained in the brain is ineffective. Rather, the two should be integrated in order to accomplish proper conduct. To avoid mistakes, designers can limit the placement of the wrong objects into the right places. Constraints are the things a designer shouldn't try to do, no matter how appealing it might look. They serve as the right check and balances with which an individual can know where designs might be too much. For example, in a bid to make their batteries better, Samsung made a design flaw that caused the batteries to overheat and explode. A designer's intention might be good, but the results might prove otherwise. There are 4 kinds of constraints. Physical constraints. A big pen will not fit into a tiny hole, and a small pen will not key into a large hole if the hole is too small. These restrictions serve to minimize mistakes while also serving as information in and of itself. Cultural constraints. These are similar to a set of norms that people use to preserve a feeling of cooperation and understanding among themselves. A car's rear view mirror can be physically interchanged with its front view mirror. but this will not make sense culturally due to the fact that the yellow light is brighter than the red light in both cases. In addition, red is considered by many people to be a signal to stop, which is why it is the color allocated to the brakes of automobiles and trucks. Relying on internal memory to execute an idea is not enough. You need reminding to be able to keep to your plan effectively. Logical constraints. Logical constraints assist you in making choices that are not influenced by any other constraint or constraint set. Logic dictates that if you have a mobile phone and want to charge it, the only place you can put it is where the charger fits, since the other holes don't seem to be appropriate charging locations. Semantic constraints. A situation's meaning is used to limit the set of behaviors that are feasible, and this is referred to as semantic constraints. Meanings change, which implies that the controls that govern them vary as well. These limitations assist you in making better planning decisions because, once you know what to avoid, it becomes simpler to concentrate on the things that need to be done. Mistakes can make your designs difficult to understand and use. Slips are mistakes that arise as a consequence of automatic, subconscious behavior that is unintentional. They are unintentional acts that cause a planned performance to be derailed by inconsequential details. The majority of mistakes individuals make on a daily basis are slips, and they are the most readily detectable. There are many different kinds of slips. Capture slip. This occurs when a present task is unconsciously replaced by another one, particularly one that is performed often. You experience it when you switch subconsciously between substituting your present activity with a more frequent one. For example, the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, queens, and jack. You've unconsciously substituted the numbers with cards in this situation. When you allow mistakes to define you, you will not be able to effectively execute your design concepts. Description error. This occurs when you plan for an action to take place in a certain location, but it takes place in a location that is similar to the one you intended. This occurs when the description of your desired objective is similar to the description of one or more things in the immediate vicinity. An older gentleman had just returned from a running session when he decided to wrap up his sweaty shirt and throw it into the water closet rather than the washing basket. Because the entrance of the water closet and the washing basket are both described in the same way, his mind inadvertently puts his shirt into the water closet without realizing it. Data-driven error. This is the kind of mistake that happens when you unintentionally swap one piece of data for another without realizing you have done so. Take, for example, the situation when you call a room number rather than the clerk's number. Associative activation error. This has to do with responding to a circumstance based on the associative default responses that you have stored in your memory. Whenever you pick up the phone and say, "Come in," instead of, "Hello," it is possible to make this mistake. Designers must pay attention to slips and do enough to make sure that they do not occur all the time. Too many slips can be dangerous for a product. Mistakes come from conscious deliberations, and these could be very costly. When errors are made, it is very difficult to undo the harm that has been done as a result. The information available to prevent a mistake from occurring is often insufficient or outright deceptive. Anyone can make mistakes, and errors will always be made. As a designer, it is essential to minimize the chance of making a mistake as much as is reasonably practicable. However, for designers who want to prevent mistakes, the following suggestions will help them do so more effectively. Recognize the sources of mistakes and devise strategies to reduce those sources. Allow for the reversal of previously taken actions. Make it possible to identify mistakes when they occur, and make it simpler to fix them when they do occur. It is necessary to alter one's attitude regarding mistakes. Consider the user of an item as someone who is trying to complete a task while making approximations along the way. Instead of thinking of users as committing mistakes, consider their behaviors as approximations of the intended behavior. It's essential to remember, however, that warning signs are not always the best solution. Take, for example, the buzzing sound that occurs when you open the door of your vehicle while the key is still in the ignition. However, what if you want to momentarily open your door while the key is still in it, or you want to give something to someone? Does the tone detect your activities? This is not the case. Some of the issues with these built-in warning features are that they may go off in mistake, and that they can be very difficult to deal with. To effectively manage the market, a company must be able to combine excellent designs with good brands while paying attention to the thoughts of customers. A lot of the time, Design mistakes are not completely the fault of the designer since they are working under limitations that limit the amount of attention that can be given to innovation. There are certain limitations, such as a competitive market and the need to put a stamp of uniqueness and brand on a product that is already functional in its natural form. While the significance of design should not be underestimated, the creativity of brands should not be undervalued either. Professional designers mostly oversee the work done by engineers and a host of other staff. Most of the designers who head big companies have employees who run their designs for them, making it difficult for them to be aware of the issues that impact their models. It's also possible that the designer's clientele aren't end users. The only thing that office directors do with their air conditioners is turn it on and off. Refrigerators are generally plugged in and rarely controlled by end users. For many individuals, it doesn't matter how the clock is set as long as it works. There are also unique designs for unique individuals. A physically fit guy would struggle to drive a vehicle designed specifically for amputees. Driving a right-handed vehicle in a left-handed lane is likely to make the design seem very difficult and unpleasant. All of these examples show that designers need to pay attention to their target market. People use the same product for different things. In places where more innovations will be hardly appreciated, there's no use for more designs. Good design is actually more difficult to detect than bad design, in part because good designs are so perfectly suited to our requirements that they are almost invisible. Designers are vulnerable to issues that may suffocate their work without them even recognizing it. The following are some of the issues. Creeping featureism. When a designer integrates all of the needs of users and prospective users into a design, the result is a design that is more complicated and less attractive. To avoid making this error, designers must learn to limit the amount of functions and updates they include in their designs. They may also utilize efficient organization to classify new features and upgrades so that consumers can quickly locate them and determine whether or not they want to use them. False image worship. Customers are prone to falling for an object's look rather than evaluating whether or not they can use it. This should not mislead a designer since appreciation is not the same as purchasing. Conclusion. The goal of design is to make it easier for us to identify actions that are feasible at any given time and to make things visible, the system's conceptual model, alternative actions, and feedback. Design is simple if the rules that govern it are followed. Good ideas lead to good designs, but great designs need continuous feedback and revisions. The world changes on a regular basis, and with it, new and better goods become simple to possess yet difficult to get. Most individuals don't have time to read manuals, and those who do may find them too complicated to comprehend. The job of a designer does not end with invention or creation. It continues with maintenance and repair at all times in order to keep up with the market and be relevant for as long as feasible. Errors happen, but they may be avoided to a certain degree, which is what designers should strive towards. As a designer, you must constantly be prepared to recognize mistakes that have occurred and do your best to fix them so that they do not occur again. People are not always turned off by a product. In many instances, they are irritated by the product's design. Users desire sophisticated goods that are simple and easy to use, allowing them to quickly access the features of a model. Designers are innovators, which is why it is critical that they adhere to established guidelines to ensure that their designs are not too complicated and that they are error-free. Try this. Examine your design to ensure it is not too complicated, and evaluate its usability and accessibility. Get enough feedback and use it to reassess your goods.